It's happened to Luigi. It's happened to Peach. It's happened to Yoshi and to Wario. It's even happened to Captain Toad. Mario spin-offs have become a major plank of Nintendo's plan to expand the IP of its mustachioed mascot. But is there a strategy behind their approach? And looking into the future, which other Mushroom Kingdom characters could be bound for their own spin-off video game? Before that though, we really need to look at the existing spin-offs and why they came to be. And the first spin-off we need to acknowledge is Mario himself. The excitable everyman started out as the Jumpman to Donkey Kong before he was spun off, and that leaves Donkey Kong as a kind of sibling franchise with Diddy Kong as an nephew. Infamously, at an early point in his evolution, Mario was intended to be Popeye, but thankfully for Nintendo, they decided to create an original character. However, the character had deeper origins still, as Miyamoto once recounted that during his high school years, people would scoff at drawing manga, and so he started a manga club in junior high school. He recalls, "Our slogan was better at art than the art club, but the truth was, we were better than the art club, and we got better grades in art than they did. And so, when rights issues prevented Popeye from getting his spinach, Miyamoto quickly came up with a sketch of a middle-aged man, or Jumpman, from his very early experience of sketching away. And there was one aspect of Mario's design from the very early stages that was incredibly important. I'll quote Miyamoto-san again. "I think it was fortuitous that we didn't put any restrictions on Mario as a character. Normally, when you create a character and present him to the world, all the details get filled in. What's his favourite colour? What kind of food does he like to eat? But with Mario, aside from the fact that he's about 24 to 25 years old, we didn't define anything else. The reason why is that we wanted to be able to use Mario in later games, and that wouldn't work so well if he had characteristics that interfered with a given game's story. When we make a game, we take care not to add incongruences into that game's world. With that caveat in mind, I'd like to keep using Mario in future games." I sometimes wonder if this partly led to Shigeru Miyamoto's infamous resistance to strong narratives in games, which in particular led him to try to unwind some of Yoshiaki Koizumi's narrative focus in Super Mario Galaxy when it came to booting up Super Mario Galaxy 2. The less you fill in, the more scope you have to develop the world and for the character to become a literal everyman representing every player. However, clearly things changed or we wouldn't be talking about it. This interview, published in Nintendo Online Monthly in 2005 for the Super Mario Bros. 20th anniversary and republished on shmuplations.com, explains a little of Mario's everyman appeal. When discussing how Mario has been adapted to a panoply of different genres, Miyamoto-san replies, "In the beginning, my thinking was more like baseball. That doesn't fit Mario. But when we tried it, it worked surprisingly well. He's a video game character, so it's good that he can be used freely. I'm glad it's turned out this way. We plan to keep putting out Mario games both in-house and third-party developed. That way, the next generation of players gets the chance to meet Mario too. But while Mario fills the role of the plucky everyman, other characters give a chance to be a little more specific. When pressed on the emergence of spin-off games, Miyamoto as ever refers to the importance of gameplay. Let's hear from him again. "I think Yoshi's Island was the first. I wanted a game that featured mechanics like the flutter jump and grabbing things with Yoshi's tongue. Recently, following the example of Wario, we've added Waluigi. If Mario had never played tennis, there would have been no Waluigi. We usually design things that way according to the necessities of the moment. Actually, you'd be surprised at how many people in our staff tell me Mario's always the main star, poor Luigi. In fact, if I had to say, it feels like Luigi is more loved than Mario at Nintendo, and so we made Luigi's Mansion for them." He added further, referring to the then new game Super Princess Peach, "It was important to us in Super Princess Peach for Peach to be Peach-like. We were very particular about designing things like her umbrella, trying to evoke her special charms. As for what Peach-like means, It's that free optimism of a princess. She has never seen herself as protected by Mario. Our image of her is one of strength. Many of the developers came from homes where the mother wears the boots, We hope to keep using Peach in different games in the future. As for Wario, the character started out as Bluto to Mario's Popeye in conception, but after debuting in Super Mario Land 2, the developers became enamored with the character. I have seen it alleged that Wario was a response to Mario, who the developers had become bored of developing for, but I think a much more likely explanation is that Mario's more fluid, jumpy gameplay was not a perfect fit for the smaller scale capacities of the Game Boy, whereas a dense, slower moving, puzzle-focused experience was a perfect utilization of the hardware and allowed them to make the most graphically rich entry in the Super Mario Land series, as well as the deepest and the most exciting. Okay, so we already see that there were some very different routes to creating Mario spin-offs. In the case of Yoshi's Island, they wanted to provide a specific kind of gameplay and grafted it into a Mario title before spinning it off into its own franchise. But with other characters, it started with wanting to give those characters their due, specifically Luigi with Luigi's Mansion. So let's look at these two routes separately and see what possibilities lie therein. Firstly, gameplay mechanics in existing Mario games which could be spun off with non-Mario characters. This is tricky because after experimenting with spin-off characters with Super Mario Land 3 and Super Mario World 2, Nintendo has largely retrenched from this kind of thing in recent years. But although they haven't created characters quite as iconic as Yoshi, they have created kind of new characters who basically perform the same function of helping Mario make the leap to a different style of gameplay. I'm talking, of course, of FLUDD and Cappy. It has to be said that Mario Sunshine's FLUDD mechanics feel different enough from standard Mario that you could easily imagine another character strapping on FLUDD and getting involved for some super soaking summer action. And even Odyssey's capture mechanics feel like they could be spun off and given to another character. The question is, which characters could inherit the mantle of these power-ups if not Mario? And the answer, I think, is kind of anyone. Anyone could wear FLUDD or Cappy, and actually I think there's something pretty magical about a talking magical cap that could stand alone quite aside from Mario as an iconic character for Nintendo. However, while lots of characters could don the mantle, if we were looking for perfect characters, I think in the case of Cappy there is one obvious answer: Pauline. Not only is Pauline a character with a deep and rich Nintendo history of her own, who they will therefore want to push if they can, but she was also one of the major feature characters of Super Mario Odyssey, and so it would only make sense for her to have her own capturing cap. For FLUDD, the options are a little more open, but given that Princess Daisy was originally introduced in Super Mario Land as the princess of some fairly sunny locations, including areas based on Egypt, Bermuda, and Easter Island, she feels like she would be well equipped to take on the main role in a Sunshine spin-off title. Of course, at a time when Nintendo is trying to expand its appeal to a female audience, giving two of its underutilized women the nod probably wouldn't do any harm. Another possibility for someone who would have unique gameplay is, of course, the King of the Koopas himself, Bowser. We have occasionally seen glimpses of Bowser gameplay. Notably, we recently had the chance to revisit playing as Bowser in the interlude sections of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. The chance to play as a seemingly invulnerable character risks a bit too much similarity to Wario perhaps, but then again, it's been a long time since the last Wario title, and perhaps that style of gameplay would be better served with an even more iconic protagonist. Still, while I would absolutely love to see a Daisy Sunshine spin-off series, I don't think it's especially likely that any of the existing Mario gameplay styles are going to be retrofitted for other characters. Therefore, let's turn to the other route that these characters could get spin-offs and think about who deserves one and what kind of gameplay they could have. Let's start where we left off, because surely the most obvious character to spin off is Bowser himself. To me, I've always thought Bowser would be ideal for a Bowser strategy mixed with construction sim game. Think about it. You start having been banished by Mario to a desolate land and have to start to build up your city and your factories, put in pipes, build up armies, set up factories, and gradually start your invasion plan. You have to put in plenty of dungeons and traps though, because every now and then a Toad or a Peach or a Donkey Kong, or if things are really bad, a Mario, will come and start to stomp all over your town of merry sociopathic Koopalings before it even starts. They'll even take affront to you invading the Mushroom Kingdom. How very dare they? With Nintendo, we have seen them play around with much more high-level strategy gameplay with Advance Wars. Now, I love Advance Wars, though I realise I never mention it, so it'll probably come as a shock to regular viewers of the channel, but I think Bowser has a chance to be very different indeed. Think how Fire Emblem and Mario + Rabbids are theoretically the same genre of tactics RPG, but are really poles apart. I would be very surprised if there haven't been pitches of some sort for Bowser games over the years, and given that the recent film seems to have helped justify giving Peach a new title, I think the odds of a Bowser title has grown, even though my Bowser construction sim concept is surely just a pipe dream. However, we know that the next option for characters who could be developed into their own spin-off has definitely been pitched to Nintendo. ShineSparkers.net reported in 2020 on a leak out of Retro Studios. The Austin Aces once pitched a Boo game, which was very swiftly taken down and appears to have been for the Nintendo DS. Now, leaks of cool retro concepts that went nowhere seem to be a dime a dozen, but you can see why Nintendo might look in the future to do something with the Boo characters. Ghosts are fun characters, and if anyone created a game with some floaty mechanics, you can imagine it getting skinned into a Boo title, much like Splatoon could have turned into a Mario title before they realised that it was better as something different. Nintendo often creates game mechanics before they decide which characters will embody them. Is it possible that a future game mechanic might be the perfect fit for the gruesome ghosts? Then we have Mario's collection of princesses or princess-like characters. Peach has already helped herself to 2 titles, so we'll ignore her for now, but Daisy, Pauline and Rosalina also fit this mould. I've covered Daisy and Pauline already, but I will say Pauline also has the benefit of being a singer. Now, I wonder how deliberate and forward-thinking that choice was when they grafted it into a character in 2017 for Mario Odyssey. Thing is, the Switch doesn't have a microphone, but if the next system does, there is every chance that Nintendo could release some kind of singing title featuring Pauline, whether a Mario-style karaoke or a more full-fledged singing adventure. The team that gave us Ring Fit Adventure, after all, have surely thought of making a musical adventure in the same way, and there were even rumours that Retro, yep, them again, were creating a singing RPG that was canned between 2014 and 2018. Now, unsubstantiated web rumours really aren't much to go on, but if Nintendo were setting Pauline up for a singing spin-off when Mario Odyssey launched in 2017, but late in the day decided to remove the microphone from the Switch to save money, it would certainly have scuppered any singing-based gameplay. Of course, if Nintendo were really dedicated to the project, they just have done what they did with Ring Fit and bundled it with equipment. But otherwise, they could have decided to save it for a system that did have an inbuilt microphone. To be clear, I think this rumour is highly unlikely to be true, but nevertheless, the concept of a game controlled by the power of song is so Nintendo that I could see something like this happening eventually. As for Rosalina, stories were her thing, so I kind of like the idea that she could headline something with a more RPG-ish feel. The trouble is, Nintendo already has multiple Mario RPG series on the go, and so I don't think any of them would benefit sales-wise from having a much less famous leading character on them, so I don't really see much of a route to the stars for the wonderful Rosalina, at least in the medium term. That said, if Nintendo and Illuminations want the next Mario film to have a more galactic flavour, the possibilities for a Rosalina title built around her, in the vein of Princess Peach Showtime, do increase significantly. Then there are Mario's animal friends. Yoshi got his own games, so why not Plessy or Poochie? Poochie in particular seems like he has huge potential, as dogs have wide appeal if only they could find a gameplay mode that worked, although Plessy's water-based nature makes him potentially harder to create gameplay for. There are also plenty of other villainous characters who could get a turn. I guess Kamek is the one who stands out as having potential because of his magical skills. This would allow them to do almost anything they like with Kamek's gameplay, but I just don't know there's a massive groundswell of people, either in the general public or on the Nintendo dev staff, who are going to go on hunger strike until the hallowed Kamek game is unveiled. On the other hand, the next character seems to have constant appeals for a game, albeit partly ironic. Waluigi. I don't know how likely a Waluigi game really is, while Wario is relegated to microgame action. Waluigi's Mansion, where you set up the traps for Luigi, could be short-lived fun, but it feels to me more like a DLC mode than an actual game. I could see Waluigi co-starring with Wario though. I've always felt they've missed a trick by not having a true Super Wario Brothers game. Most games either have co-op or competitive play modes, but I think this game could have both. For the first half of each course, you'd need to work closely with a partner to get as much treasure as possible. Then for the second half of the course, you'd have to stab them in the back to make sure that you get as much of that treasure for yourself. Come on, it would be awesome. There's also Nabbit. A thief character always has potential, I guess, but I'm not quite sure where. However, I guess if they had a money-themed game and they wanted to skin it with a familiar Mario character, Nabbit might come through the middle and be a surprise spin-off star. Of course, there are many more potential characters, from Toad and Toadette to Monty Mole and Bowser Jr., but I've tried to focus on the characters who feel the most likely to get a spin-off. So, how likely are we to see any kind of spin-off from Mario at all in the next few years? Well, the last decade or so has seen Captain Toad and Princess Peach Showtime. However, as they're clearly looking to expand the Mario brand in the wake of the success of the movie, I don't necessarily think we'll have to wait as long this time. I reckon there's a 10% chance we will see a new type of Mario spin-off by the end of 2025, but raising to a 30% chance by the end of 2027. It could, of course, be that they just take a character who has already been spun off, such as Peach, and give them yet another gameplay style, but I kind of hope they do think about giving another character a whirl and trying something a little bit more experimental. What do you think though? I always appreciate the wonderful informed comments on these videos, so please join in the conversation below. Like, subscribe, share, check out the Patreon, and follow one of these links if you're interested. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.